All right, back on the podcast, talking MMA, this time on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Earlier today, got some breaking news out of One Bills Drive. The Buffalo Bills have decided to part ways with Kelvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes, two wide receivers for the Buffalo Bills that Bills fans were a little bit indifferent with, to say the least. Especially Kelvin Benjamin. Really, Andre Holmes had done nothing. I'm quite shocked he actually wasn't cut sooner. But Kelvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes, two guys that Buffalo fans prior to the season thought that the Bills would definitely reap the rewards from those two players. Safe to say they did. And Andre Holmes, as always, I like to keep the Buffalo Bills fans as up to date as I possibly can with Buffalo Bills information. But that is the latest. No recent news other than that on a One Bills Drive. They did make two additions to their roster today via the practice squad on the defensive side of the ball. I believe it was a defensive end and a linebacker. Could be wrong on that. Didn't really get the details on that, but it's funny. They dropped two players from their offensive side of the ball and add two players to the defensive side of the ball. We'll see what happens with that. But I want to talk about some MMA topics today. I touched on an MMA topic earlier today, and that was Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega. That is the main event. The main event December 8th, as Max Holloway defends the UFC featherweight title versus Ortega in a fight that, MMA fans have been waiting a long time for. I dove into that matchup. I previewed the matchup. I predicted how I saw the fight going down. If you want to check that out, you can go to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, obviously on Facebook, and let me know what you think. Earlier today, I had a comment on my Kareem Hunt video that was from a former NFL veteran, Chidi Ahanatu, former Buffalo Bill, actually. And he didn't take well to what I said about Kareem Hunt and how I don't think he should get a second chance. But I'm going to pick his brain about it. Might actually have him on the show to talk about it and, have him give his take on the whole situation. So tune in for that. As well, we'll talk about the subject matter as far as MMA. I want to just throw that in there. But ONE FC, or ONE Championship, as I like to call it, ONE FC still, because that's what it was called. I even titled it as such, even though that is not what it is called now. It is ONE Championship, which I don't really know if I like that. I wouldn't mind it if they called it ONE MMA or ONE something, ONE Fight League or OFL or something like that. But anywho, ONE Championship made two major acquisitions to their roster, and ONE Championship is a fast-growing mixed martial arts organization in Singapore that is just continuing, in Asia and the whole circuit over there across the world. They are really trying to expand into a global brand, and they bring in two very big names, and Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson comes over to ONE Championship via trade. It was the first trade ever done by two mixed martial arts organizations featuring ONE Championship and ONE Championship and the UFC. The UFC acquired Ben Askren, and ONE Championship acquired Demetrius Johnson. And that's a little bit old news. I don't have to delve into that because I already talked about that actually on the podcast, but I believe in this company. I believe in what they're trying to do. And, initially, it's pretty easy to be skeptical of a new up-and-coming MMA organization because so many in previous years have just come and gone. Pride, Strikeforce, the WEC. Those are the three major ones that really held a candle to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, to the UFC, and they were eventually organizations that fell. So I'm very mixed as to, my expectations are not as high as they would be for other organizations to succeed in years past. But one championship, I do feel as if they will succeed. And I think it's not just because of the two additions that they made to their roster, which are huge. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson's one of the greatest MMA fighters ever. Eddie Alvarez is a true Hall of Famer, one of the greatest lightweights of all time, arguably the greatest, depending on who you talk to. Not just because of those two additions, but because of the presentation, the way they are offering the company to the fans of mixed martial arts. And what I mean by that is the way they're selling it. They're selling one championship as an organization that continues to, time and time again, preach that the MMA fans are what matter, not the fighters talking trash. The respect of mixed martial arts, the honor of mixed martial arts is really the main selling point for one championship. And that is really what the hardcore fans love, which is the majority of the MMA fan base is the hardcore fans, the fans that have been around for a long time, guys like myself. So that I can get down with. I can definitely accept that. Their platform is free. They have their own app where you can watch the fights. Eventually, I do see them getting big enough to have pay-per-view because they went from 750,000 views to 25 million views over their app, over their network, which is massive. So it's only a matter of time as more recognizable names from North America come over to the One Championship organization in Asia. It's going to gain more mainstream appeal. And really, I've always said this, whether it's a player for player or a running back for a running back or whatever it may be, competition breeds success. One organization will have success because of the next. And if there's more pots for fighters to make more money, if there's more pots for fighters to dip their, more waters for the fighters to dip their toes in, whatever analogy you want to use, it's a good thing for mixed martial arts. It's a good thing for combat sports, and it's exciting. So there's been a lot of recent talk as far as more free agents that One Championship may be bringing in, and they've brought in another free agent that really grabbed my attention. That was Sage Northcutt, Super Sage Northcutt, who I feel will be a massive star, maybe even a bigger star than that of Eddie Alvarez or a Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, because those guys have already built their names, whereas Sage Northcutt has a long career ahead of him. It's a very young man, a man that is trained by one of the best to ever do it, Uriah Faber. I feel like this was a perfect addition to One Championship, and it's the perfect move for Sage Northcutt's career. Maybe the UFC was a little bit too bright for him. Maybe the UFC was a little bit too big for him. Maybe he's a bigger fish in a smaller pond in this organization, in One Championship. But I don't know, because I really don't know many of the fighters over there, but I definitely know I will, because I will be watching. I will be watching this product. I want to see what they have to offer. I'm a massive MMA fan, first and foremost. And when you have the UFC, when you have Bellator, when you have One Championship, I think those are the three pillars in the sport. Bellator offers a unique, fun, entertaining product that differs greatly from the UFC. The UFC offers a product that is pure sport and spectacle. And then One Championship is offering something that will be very interesting to see as well. Yoshihiro Akiyama, I believe, signed with One Championship as well. He's a little bit long in the tooth, but he's a big name over in Japan. So I'm very excited to see what materializes with One FC, with One Championship. I felt like the trade with Demetrius Johnson and Ben Askren was really good for both sides. It allowed Mighty Mouse to work under Matt Hume, who's the president of One Championship and the main trainer of Demetrius Johnson. That's his coach. Then you have Eddie Alvarez, who gets to build his name globally again, which is what he was most known for in previous years back in the day. I just like the direction that they're heading in. I like where they're going. I'm excited to see what happens, and I can't wait to see what options we have. Another organization that I think is going to make big waves here in 2019 is PFL, the Professional Fighters League. They're doing some very interesting things in terms of their tournament styles, in terms of their championships. Whoever wins the tournament and wins the title is gifted $1 million check from Professional Fighters League. One dynamic of one championship that's very interesting is the fact there really isn't weight classes. You know, you could weigh as much as 167. There's like an 8-pound weight allowance from where the UFC has the weight classes. So if I'm fighting at 145, I can, fight within 8 pounds of that. Fight at 153, you're still able to fight it at 145. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out. I'm excited. I feel like Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius Johnson, and Super Sage Northcutt were great additions to that organization. And it'll be fun to see what transpires from here on out. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. My thoughts on ONE Championship and why I believe that this organization is here to stay.